Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do a fiction book. It seems like a little while since I've done a fiction book. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just because I've been working on so many other things. I hope you can hear me all right. It's kind of noisy out there right now. I decided to pick something a little different. I recently read Mike Chen's Star Wars novel, Brotherhood. This bookmark because I'm also reading it to my mother. I don't generally enjoy reading. In fact, I don't think I've never read a Star Wars novel before. I'm not really all that interested. The only Star Wars media that I particularly care about are the 6 films. So I didn't really have originally any intention of reading any of them, but I had heard some good things about this one. And I'm glad I read it. It was entertaining, and my mother's enjoying it. So this book is set, there will be some mild to major spoilers for if you haven't seen the 3 prequel films. You may not want to watch this book talk video because I can't really talk about the plot of this book without going into the plots of the 3 films. So if you haven't seen those films yet, don't watch this video. And don't read the book before you've seen at least the first 2 of the 3 prequels. So, I'm not going to spoil the book, but I will be spoiling some of the films. This is set in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. It's set shortly after Attack of the Clones. So Anakin already has his first prosthetic, but he does not have the scar on his face. And his mother is, of course, deceased. You have multiple POV chapters, primarily Anakin and Obi-Wan's point of view. But you also have a young Jedi initiate, Mel Alabeth. You have a few of her POV chapters in here as well. She ends up spending some time with Anakin, and this story is set partly slash mostly on a planet called Cato Nemoidia, which everybody who's into the Star Wars stuff is going to know a lot more about than me. I'm not particularly into it. But long story short, if you've seen Revenge of the Sith, you hear in the first part of the film, Anakin and Obi-Wan are debating about the time that didn't count. The business on Cato Nemoidia that didn't count. And this is, at least this author's version of what they're referring to. I believe this is a very new book, so it was released post Revenge of the Sith. I'm looking for the, let me see if I can find the publication date. 2022. So yeah, this is a really new book. They do have a Star Wars novel timeline, and of course they have the stuff from that company that I'm not going to mention, because I don't agree with the stuff that they've done to Star Wars. In fact, I don't know very many people who do. I have heard stuff from a few people who like a couple of things that they did, but that's about it. I hear a lot more bad information than good. But I always try to come at everything from an unbiased standpoint. as well as from the standpoint of a writer. Let's just say I'm not going to go into what I think about what they did. So, Anakin in this story has just made Jedi Knight. He's just been given his knighthood. And you actually see part of that ceremony in the beginning of the book. Some of the primary players are Rogue Quarnon. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. She is a Nemoidian guard, special ops, or at least formerly special ops, quote, formerly, unquote, special ops, who is helping on her planet when a major disaster hits. And Cato Nemoidia is trying to figure out what caused this event. And there are an awful lot of people who want to say that it was the Republic, that the Republic had something to do with it. You do have mentions of a brief scene with Count Dooku in the beginning. And you have a character called Asajj Ventress, who apparently is a big thing in Star Wars. So she shows up and they have their first confrontation with her. But they're not sure exactly who she is, what she wants, who she's working for. They suspect, but they don't know. So Anakin and Obi-Wan are separated for the majority of the book. They start out together and then very quickly they are separated. Obi-Wan is sent to Cato Nemoidia alone. That's one of the terms of the agreement that they managed to reach with the Nemoidian government. And Anakin is given an assignment on Coruscant to pass on his wisdom to the younglings. Karma. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. So this is, like I said, pre-Revenge of the Sith. So you don't have the stuff with the younglings in the temple. You also have Dex, Obi-Wan's friend Dex, who runs the diner. He's in this. I like Dex. He's one of the characters from the prequels who I like. I kind of wish they had him more involved, because it seemed like the camaraderie between him and Obi-Wan was really nice. Padme is in this, and you get more of Anakin's point of view. You don't get any of her point of view, but you do get his. And this is, since this was the first Star Wars novel that I've read, you do get, shall we say, more indications that the kid's got issues. Because everything kind of revolves around Padme. And most of his motivations surround Padme. And most of his thoughts are on Padme. And he wants the war to end soon so that he can be with Padme. And he doesn't like the fact that the Senate is in session so often because he wants to be with Padme. And he doesn't like the fact that he has to spend so much time doing his Jedi stuff because he wants to be with Padme. And Padme. You see what I mean? Kid's got an issue. Kind of made me want to tap him on the shoulder, say, look, I love you, but you got problems. Or tap Obi-Wan on the shoulder and say, you need to have a word, non-judgmental word, or 5 with him, or at least let him talk. Better yet, let him talk. But that's kind of a problem too, because it seems like Anakin doesn't really want to open up to Obi-Wan. He does, and yet he doesn't. Yeah, he does, and yet he doesn't. And part of that is external influences, but I think part of it is also him and maybe his own preconceived ideas about how Obi-Wan would react, which is understandable and for the most part probably accurate. But I think sometimes maybe if he couldn't have gone to, you can do all kinds of speculations about if this were a real scenario, how could things have gone differently. But so you get, let's see, some of Mel Albeth's point of view chapters. She's one of the younglings, Jedi younglings, who is sitting in on some of the talks that Anakin is giving. And she ends up spending more time around Anakin because she is struggling with her connection to the Force. She is made very ill by trauma, grief, physical injury, physical pain, anger, hatred. So she's very empathic, and she has physical reactions to what she picks up on. And it's difficult for her to control it. So her initial response is to just shut the Force off. And Anakin's the one who actually encourages her to not do that. Because he says, basically, if you start shutting it off, that's only going to make the situation worse. It's not going to make it better. It's not going to shield you. It's actually going to make it harder to deal with. So you then have Asajj Ventress. Obi-Wan is actually the first one who comes into contact with Asajj Ventress because she's on Cato Nemoidia. And one of the conditions is that Obi-Wan can't contact the Republic while he's on Cato Nemoidia. So, of course, Anakin decides to find a way around that. And there are a lot of... I like the way that Mike Chen writes. I like the way that he clearly outlined, clearly described each of the individual moving parts, because there are a lot of moving parts. It's when you read this, you get the feel of actually watching a Star Wars film. All the characters are actually in character. The dialogue is exactly what you would expect to hear in the films from those particular characters. You get a little bit of a peek into Obi-Wan's past, and you also get both Anakin and Obi-Wan wishing that Qui-Gon was there. And there's a little bit of a what I personally interpreted as an indication that Obi-Wan was, in a very Jedi way, more, I guess you could say, damaged or traumatized by Qui-Gon's death than he lets on. That's the way that I kind of interpreted it. I don't think, and Anakin doesn't pick up on that. He sees what Obi-Wan's doing, but it doesn't occur to him that that's why he might be doing it, because he misses Qui-Gon. Because Qui-Gon was the father figure to Obi-Wan. And that's also one of the reasons why Obi-Wan is not a father figure to Anakin, in my honest opinion. Because Anakin was meant to replace Obi-Wan as Qui-Gon's Padawan. Qui-Gon, as the father figure, started out with Obi-Wan, and then he decided Obi-Wan was ready to go out on his own, and then he took Anakin on. He wanted to take Anakin on as his next Padawan. Even though Qui-Gon was one of the older human Jedi, to my understanding. So that would have literally, I guess in the Jedi sense, have made Obi-Wan and Anakin brothers. So that's, my opinion, one of the reasons why Anakin couldn't try to turn that into like a father-son dynamic, because it was just naturally brother and brother. And Obi-Wan is not, he's not father material. Uncle material, maybe. Father material, no. No. So, I was happy with this book, even though they put it in, here, I'll show you. They put it in the so-called new Star Wars timeline. See if that shows up. It's written in such a way that if you don't work with that, which I don't, it fits right in to the 6 films as well. To me, it doesn't alter anything. I mean, my mother is one of the original Star Wars fans. She remembers when A New Hope, quote, A New Hope, unquote, came out. And she's been enjoying this just as much as I did. And she doesn't have an issue with the story at all. I'm sure there are plenty of people who are far more into the official, original George Lucas storyline than I am, and have a whole lot, a far greater knowledge of stuff, and they might, I don't know, find things that contradict some of that. And if so, that's fine. I think this works great as a standalone novel. This is one of the insert pages. Well, not inserts, but I forget what it's called. And then you also have the title page, and then they have an illustration of the two of them there. And then I'll give you an example of the typeface. This is one of Anakin's chapters. So yeah, I was happy with it. I don't have an issue with the story. I do like his writing. This is the author, Mike Chen, right there. We're getting some reflection here because the cover has that plastic. It's in that plastic insert. I picked this up at the library. If I intended to get a Star Wars novel, I probably would buy this one. I know that there are novelizations of Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. I wouldn't mind reading those because my understanding is that they are actual George Lucas canon, especially I heard with the novelization of Revenge of the Sith that George Lucas was involved, not with the writing of the book, but he signed off on the manuscript itself and all the details in the manuscript. So everything that you get in that novel, at least, is pure original canon. But I can't get those books from my library. My library does not have copies, and I've been trying to get them from ILL, but so far I haven't been able to get them. But it would be interesting to get all of the nuances that you didn't see in the film because they only have so much time, and there are things that translate a lot better on the printed page as opposed to visually. So I was happy with this book. Would I recommend it? Yes. Yeah, I would recommend it, even if you're not all that into Star Wars, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like it. I grew up with it, but honestly, I grew up with a whole lot more Star Trek. And when I say Star Trek, I mean actual Star Trek. Because I remember when that was, apart from the Star Trek films, the actual Gene Roddenberry Star Trek films, the original show was all you had, and I didn't even have that much of that. Just a few episodes that my parents were either able to record or that we were able to purchase. So that was the one that I was exposed to the most. The only times that I saw Star Wars, I was only allowed to see A New Hope. And the only time I saw that was on the extremely rare occasions when it was airing on TV. I think we got it from Blockbuster Video back in the day, maybe once or twice, but that was about it. I was not allowed to see The Empire Strikes Back until I was a little older, and I wasn't allowed to see Return of the Jedi until I was quite a bit older. I didn't even know that there was more than one film originally. It wasn't until I grew up a little bit more that I found out they'd made 2 other films. Because they were not, my parents didn't consider that to be appropriate for me, a lot of it to be appropriate for me. Because my parents didn't like war movies, so they preferred to not watch stuff that was primarily geared more towards war, with the exception of Star Wars. But like I said, I wasn't permitted to see anything except A New Hope. So I grew up primarily with Star Trek. And I remember when NTG came out, Next Generation. I remember when Gene Roddenberry announced he was going to do Next Generation. So I was not, and I've never been a major fan of anything in particular. Even with the Lord of the Rings stuff, I wouldn't consider myself to be a fan, even though I'm more into, I hate to say the merch, but I'm more into the symbolism and the storyline because of what Tolkien did with his writing. So that's also one of my goals, is to get all of Tolkien's books as well and read them cover to cover several times over. So, but this book I did like. I would recommend it, and I'm glad that I picked it up from the library. I'm glad that I read it. It does, to me, add more depth and some more color to the characters, not just with the prequel films, but with all of them, to me. So that's about it for this video, and then I'm going to do a second video, probably not going to be able to do it today, on the other book that I'm still in the process of trying to finish. But I'm so happy with it that I think I'm just going to go ahead and do the book talk video, even though I haven't completed the book. So that'll be a first. So I hope you're having a good day, and that you enjoy reading, and that you stay cool, because it's still kind of nasty over here. Bye.